Alright, so continuing to our previous clip, here we would like to talk about furthermore the rendering sections of the fluids. So we discussed in the previous clip that we just created the render layer over here that will just segregated the scene, and we also do have the master layer that is containing all the assets of the Maya file. And over here we have the fluid underscore beauty, that is the layer that is containing only the informations of the fluid as well as the tree. So I also would like to show you up with the render that we have just got. And here in this case you can see the color of the fire and the smoke both are coming very good. The tree is also there. We do also talk about the displacement approximation map, so that will also going to bring some more subtleties inside the surface of the tree, and also going to bring some more realism inside the tree. But if we're gonna go inside the alpha mode, you can see over here that there isn't any sections for the shadows. No doubt in our scene we are concentrating a lighting that is basically the diffuse lighting. We do not have any direct source of light over here. You can say the sunlight or the moonlight. But the case is that the fire being in itself an incandescence, you can say material, or you can say the substance in its nature that has to cast out the lighting as well as the shadows. So the case is that if the fluids or if the fire are rising too much higher and very aggressive in the nature, so it also has to cast out some shadows. But unfortunately we do not have any provisions for the shadow right now. So first of all we need to talk about how we're going to create the shadows. Alright, so for that I also do need to have another layer over here where I would like to put the fluid for the shadows. So again, what we can do here, we can just drag and select all these elements inside the scene and can create, and you can click over here, and that we're going to create another layer. So let me just kind of double click it, and let's say the fluids shadows. Alright, that seems to be pretty okay. So for that we also do need to have the base. So right now we do not have any base, so we could go inside the master layer and can select this, the background, and we can add to the selected objects. But as you notice that in the previous clip we talked about the use background utility, also we provided the displacement approximation to the tree. Now the same thing has to be provided to the background. Alright, so for that we need to go inside the hybrid shade, and we need to click under the Maya surface sections, and let's just gonna create the use background. So what I can do is that first of all I like to rename this, because in this file you can see that all the shaders have been properly renamed as according to their own standards as well as their to their respected objects. So I need to go and let's say right click rename, and let's just name it that bg underscore use background. Alright, that seems to be pretty okay. So we're gonna double click that up, and here in this case I don't need the reflectivity, we also don't need the reflection limit. So the shadow mask option will remain over 1 because we want this time that the fluid should cast out the shadows. So we need to select the background, and let us say right click over here and assign material to the viewport selection. So with that you can notice that the background has been added. Now we do have the geometry or the base to support the shadows. So for the shadows obviously we need to have the light. So if we're going to go inside the outliner, and we do have the light group over here, so I can assign at least one light that is a key light, and shift H, also right click, add selected to the objects. So with that the light has been added to the rendering layers. So now the case is that we do have the directional light, and what we could do is that we could just start playing with the direction, and obviously this in this case the light has to come from this particular direction. We don't want that thing to cast out very long shadows. Okay, so what we're gonna do is that we can just put the light over here. Also like to put that into the world mode, and we also do need to provide some shadows for the light. So here the ray trace shadows is on. And one thing to be noted very carefully that we do have two kind of shadows. First is the depth map and next is the ray trace. In case of the mental ray, we are dealing, obviously we need to do the ray tracing, and secondly we are dealing with the volumetric data. For that, the ray trace is the best options. So for the light angle, that will going to decide how much the light will going to get spread out. So that will also going to affect the computational steps of our rendering process. So that's pretty much high, so I'm going to put that into 0.25. And for the shadow rays, to sample out the jitters from the shadows, which is also very high, we can put that thing to the 3. And the ray depth limit will going to decide that how much shadow has to compute the surfaces of the normals in order to cast out the shadows. For example, we do have an object in the mirror reflections, and the 6 times the reflections are taking place. So with the value 3, it will gonna cast only the shadows of the object for 3 times only. Alright, so this attribute is not like that much important, so I can put that thing to the, let's say 1 or maybe 2. Let's say 1 is pretty much fine. So now we're gonna add the light to the fluid underscore shadows rendering layer, and let's just put that thing to the render. So I'm gonna pause the video a little bit up so that we could have the shadows over here. So let me just gonna click over here and render the current frame. Alright, so now we come back, and here you can see it took 44 seconds to cast out the shadows. But now the problem is that we do have the shadows all around here, but the issue is that there isn't any shadow for the fluids. Alright, so what exactly is the problem that we need to deal with that? Well, firstly, the case would be if we need to go inside the rendering sections and need to go inside the scene. Here we do have something called the shadows. Alright, let me just gonna close everything for you so that it will be easier for us to recall what exactly we are doing. We need to go inside the scene sections and click over here that lights, and then under the light we do have the shadows. So the shadows are here playing the most important role. You can see that the shadow method has been assigned to the symbol. So in that case we need to provide the setting to the segments. Only then the shadows will going to appear for the volumetric data, that is the fluids. Otherwise the shadow will not going to appear. So what we can do here is that to simplify our scene much better, what else we could do is that we can just disable the primary visibility of the fluids, since I am just only looking forward for the shadow sections, not the fluids. So for that we need to select with the fluid container, Control A. We could go under the render stats and we can just create, let's say right click, and let's say create layer override, and switch off the primary visibility. What this attribute will gonna do that the fluids will remain there, it will gonna compute with the simulation steps, everything, but it will not gonna appear to the camera since the primary visibility has been switched off, but it will gonna create the shadows. So what we're gonna do here is that we do have the rendering settings, everything is ready. So now we'll take another render for this, and now we're gonna compare how the things will gonna work out. So that's pretty much okay. You can see that in the previous example we do not have any algorithm for the shadows, but right now we do have the proper shadows. So with these settings we are now comfortable to achieve the shadows. Alright, now I guess we are done with the sections. We also do need to be very careful that we do have the fluid beauty layer over here. In this case we are only rendering the fluids, but in the case of the fluid shadows we are only calculating the shadows. So we do have the two information separate. That will going to help our composer or the composing guys to extract all the informations independently and individually. Alright, now it's time to move to the next session to understand the rendering settings. Alright.